Have you ever actually stopped and wondered who really pulls the levers of global power? I mean, sure, we're taught to look at elected officials, presidents, prime ministers when we think about authority. But what if the real power isn't voted in at the ballot box at all? Welcome back to our latest explainer. Today, we're putting on our investigative journalist hats and we are mapping out the hidden structures of control. We're going to follow the money, right past those official government buildings and straight into the private boardrooms to uncover the unelected forces that truly run the world. Okay, let's jump right into our core premise with this quote from our research dossier. In today's world, money is more than wealth. It is influence, access, and control. You know, when most of us think of extreme wealth, we picture mansions, maybe a fleet of super yachts. But extreme wealth is actually an entirely different currency. It's literally the ability to dictate reality. So we're going to break down exactly how these astronomical financial resources are systematically converted into tangible global influence.
All right, let's get into part one. The rise of modern empires.
To really grasp how this works today, we first need to look at how the very nature of power has evolved. Historically, it was all about brute physical force. Kings, emperors, conquerors, they controlled nations using armies and capturing land. It was strictly territorial. But modern power, it's a whole different ballgame. Today, you don't need an army. It relies on billionaires, massive capital, and absolute control over technology and global industries. Think oil, banking, pharmaceuticals. Globalization and the internet basically changed the battlefield overnight, allowing modern titans to build literal empires without ever firing a single shot. And we are looking at a truly unprecedented scale of wealth here. We're living in an era where a single app or a digital marketplace can out-earn ancient royal families. Our source data actually points out that some individuals own companies worth more than the entire economies of sovereign countries. It's honestly hard to wrap your head around, but it's absolutely crucial to understand. Because with wealth that exceeds national GDPs comes enormous sweeping influence over everything. Which brings us to Section 2, funding the political machine. So how does that abstract, mind-boggling wealth step into the public arena and become concrete political leverage? Well, here is the step-by-step architecture. Let's be real. Elections are wildly expensive. We're talking billions for ads and rallies. So step one, wealthy individuals step in to heavily fund politicians whose platforms conveniently align with their business interests. Step two, this evolves into secretly funding massive lobbying groups that pressure those same governments to lower taxes or slash regulations. And finally, step three, this financial pipeline secures direct, unfettered access to the lawmakers themselves. They don't even need to run for office. They literally just fund the office. Here's the kicker. This creates a system where the wealthy undeniably have a louder voice than ordinary citizens. When a few individuals can basically buy the biggest megaphone in the room through campaign funding and lobbying, critics argue that the average voter's voice just gets completely drowned out. It raises a massive structural question about modern representation, doesn't it? Are our laws actually being shaped by the people or by the people who fund the campaigns? Let's move on to Section 3, avoiding corporate accountability. Now, what exactly do they want from these lawmakers once they have that access? Well, many billionaires are inextricably linked to giant multinational corporations, and these entities influence pretty much every aspect of our daily lives. We're talking about dictating global trade, controlling labor markets, and heavily shaping environmental policies. They manage our most critical resources, the oil in our cars, the food networks that feed us, the life-saving medicines we rely on. This isn't just about business anymore. This is about control over human survival and our basic quality of life. It gets wilder when you stack multinational corporations up against actual national governments. You'd think the governments hold all the cards, right? Nope. Governments are actively competing with one another just to attract these corporations, purely because they desperately need the jobs and the investments those companies bring. And to win this global competition, governments routinely grant these massive businesses special tax benefits and highly favorable laws. The result? Corporations leverage their sheer size to dodge corporate accountability, effectively strong-arming sovereign nations into playing by corporate rules. All right, Section 4, the invisible hand of data and media. But physical resources? That's really just half the equation. In the 21st century, the world's wealthiest individuals control the most valuable resource of all, information. And this directly impacts every single one of us. Tech billionaires hold unbelievable power through the massive mountains of personal data they harvest daily. They've got your search histories, your exact physical locations, your online purchases, your deepest private interests, and all your social interactions.
everything is tracked, analyzed, and categorized. And this data allows advanced algorithms to predict your behavior and even secretly shape your political opinions before you even realize your mind is being changed.
Which brings us to a pretty chilling realization. Viral content isn't just funny memes or entertainment. It can actually swing elections, crash or spike financial markets in minutes, and ignite or extinguish massive social movements across the globe. Through media ownership and tuning social media algorithms, billionaires can completely control what stories get promoted and what gets buried. Our research notes that some experts now believe tech companies actually hold more communication power than official governments, because honestly, the people who control the platforms control the narrative. Section 5. Philanthropy as soft power. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but what about all the good they do? What about the billions in charity? We have to keep our skeptical investigation going here and look at the concept of soft power. Basically, that's the ability to shape society and dictate public priorities without using force or ever holding political office. Look, on the surface, donating billions to universities, scientific research, and global health initiatives sounds entirely positive. But large donations inherently dictate exactly what topics receive attention. By selectively funding specific schools or research labs, extreme wealth, subtly, but incredibly effectively, steers the entire direction of societal progress. Take a look at this vast web of soft power. It spans all these diverse spheres of influence, totally outside of direct politics: media, tech and data, philanthropy, universities, global health. It perfectly illustrates how these non-political avenues allow extreme wealth to quietly dictate our society's top priorities. Now, supporters will definitely argue that billionaires step in to solve problems that slow governments just can't handle efficiently. But critics raise a really vital question. Should private, unelected citizens actually have this much unchecked sway over global public health and education? We really have to ground this systemic control in the stark reality of wealth inequality. Because while billionaires wield all this soft and hard power, millions are actively struggling just to keep up with rising living costs. To put it into perspective, a billionaire can earn more money in a single day than an average worker is going to earn in their entire lifetime. Let that sink in. This massive, constantly growing gap creates profound global frustration and social tension, especially as a tiny group dominates the housing, healthcare, and resources that everyone else needs just to survive. Finally, Section 6, Progress or Unchecked Power. This brings our explainer to its climax as we look at the overarching global consequences. The most unique aspect of modern extreme wealth is its absolute global impact without borders. A decision made quietly inside a corporate boardroom doesn't stop at a national borderline. A tech company updates an algorithm and changes global communication instantly. A single powerful investor can cause international markets to boom or bust. Media owners shape opinions across entire continents, and pharmaceutical giants practically dictate worldwide healthcare access. It is an instant, borderless level of influence that has literally never existed before in human history.
So this leads us to the ultimate debate from our sources. Are billionaires a net positive or a negative? On one side, supporters of the system see them as ultimate visionaries. They argue these individuals create innovation, fund scientific breakthroughs, provide millions of jobs, and drive our modern economic progress forward. But on the flip side, critics view them as modern-day oligarchs, symbols of extreme inequality who exploit workers, dodge taxes, and manipulate sovereign governments purely for personal gain. The reality? It's incredibly complex. Wealth itself is just a tool. The real debate is about exactly how it is wielded.
Which leads us with one final, vital question that you have to answer for yourself. Should a small handful of individuals really hold the keys to so much global power? As you navigate your day-to-day life, the news you're reading, the food you're buying, the data you're constantly generating, try to remember the unseen architecture that is shaping it all behind the scenes. Money is influence. So, are these wealthy innovators ultimately responsible for driving our human progress? Or is it past time for governments to step up and regulate this unelected global power? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the structures around you, and